My dad came from Malmo, Sweden in 1878. He was born in 1869, and he came over when he was 18, so that would figure out to 69, 79, 89. That would be about 69, 79, 89, take off 2, is 87. Instead of 78, it was 87. And he came to worked for a farmer for a year in the United States, and then from there he ran a steam shovel while they were digging the Chicago drainage canal. And then he worked himself up as a fireman and as an engineer on the railway, and he worked there till 1897, and he came to Edmonton to prepare to go on the Klondike in the fall of 1897. Another came out from England in the spring of 1907, and she was saying when they came north of Calgary, they could see all along the fences there was cattle frozen to death with their feet in the air. It was such a tremendously hard winter. And when they got to the farm where they were going to live, there was about 6-foot snowdrifts thrown back on each side of the door of the old cabin, of the thatched roof cabin. And I can still remember my mother saying there was only 2 places that were dry after a good rainstorm in the cabin, and that was in the oven and under the table. And when Grandpa and Grandma came out from England, he was a gardener in England, and he didn't know anything about farming, so he settled on a quarter section just north of my dad's. So he worked with Dad to find out how to farm. And as he went over to help Dad, Mother was just a young girl, and she went along. Probably she found dishes in the old shack to wash. And anyway, in 1913, they got married. Mother was 18 and a half, and Dad was around 44. And in the space of from 1913 to 1937, there was 15 children born. And their names were Anna, Ruth, Christina, Hans, Nels, Lavina, Ula, Jeppa, Alma, Mildred, Astrid, Velma, Ella, Edith, Rachel. There was 3 girls, 2 boys, a girl, 2 boys, and then 7 girls. And I was the 7th one. My younger brother Jeppa was the middle one of the family. And Dad settled just about 27, 28 miles northwest of Edmonton on a farm, bought a quarter section in around 1901, 1902 for $3 an acre, and he bought it on time because he didn't have anything left when he lost everything trying to get to the Klondike. And he farmed there till about 1907, I think, by what I heard. And then he went back to the States to, somebody said, to get a wife. And the girl that he had been thinking of for a wife was already married when he got back there, and he had promised her a pair of golden slippers. And she didn't get the golden slippers, and he didn't get the wife. So he came back and farmed another 6 years before he found his wife across the fence to the north. And he started raising a herd of horses and a herd of cattle, and bringing up the big family through the 30s. It must not have been easy, because there was a lot of farmers that went in debt to feed their family. But Dad and Mom, they chose to have lots of meat from the cattle, and they raised pigs too, and we had pork. I can remember in the spring, Dad would and the older boys would butcher a couple of cows, and they'd hang the meat up in the smokehouse, and we'd have to keep the smoke going for about a month to smoke that meat, the beef. Then, as far as the pork is concerned, we generally butchered a couple of pigs, and they had a 45-gallon wooden barrel, and Mom and the older girls would salt these pieces of pork and put it in layer by layer into this barrel, and then put a salted brine. As they put a layer in, they'd put some more salted brine in until they had the barrel full of pork. And then down in the cellar, we had another 45-gallon barrel that we had full of cabbages for the winter. Sauerkraut, they called it. I can still remember pushing that old cabbage cutter and punching the sauerkraut down with a block of wood with a handle on it. And they never bought many groceries. Dad generally went out and bought about 10 sacks of wheat, and Dad used to clean out the crusher and crush it, and he generally put it through the crusher twice to get it to be fine enough and that was our cereal every morning. And Mom was used to bake bread. She used to bake twice a week, and to my memory, I thought it was around a couple dozen loaves twice a week. And I can still see the separator bowl behind the old stove, with all full with bread dough, leaving it rise. And then she used to put it in loaf pans and put it in the warming oven to keep it partially warm until she baked it. And I can remember during the 30s, when there was sugar rationing, the older girls and Mom used to grow sugar beets and boiled them and put them through the colander to drain out the juice, and those sugar beet syrup we had on our cereal, and when the sugar rationing was cut off and we could get sugar again, I was disappointed because I liked that sugar beet syrup better than I liked the sugar. then as we, I can still remember Jeff and I, the two younger boys, Dad would, if he was going away or anything, he'd tell us what we were to take one of the old Belgium horses with a single tree and a chain, and we had to go through the old shelter belt and get all the dry trees out and pull them up to where we used to have the wood pile, and we'd pull them up there and stack this great big stack of wood, and then when we got enough there, Dad and the older boys would get the old puff engine that the Dad used to use it on the grinder and on the saw to saw wood. I forget now, it must have been about 10-12 horsepower. And we'd saw up the wood, and it seemed like it was always my job to be out there splitting wood. And I can still remember while I was splitting wood, I was dreaming of, why isn't there some easier way to split wood? And I was wondering how I could make something to go round and round and swing that axe. And in about 1941, my younger brother and I, we took an old tractor front wheel. It was about 5 feet high with an old steel wheel off of a gas tractor, and we made a frame to hold it, and we made a wood splitter. And I can still remember taking old Jack and Paul, that was the team of Belgians we used to use all the time. We pulled it over to the wood pile. We were going to split wood with it. And I can still remember Dad coming out of the kitchen door, and he said, "Boys," he said, "you take that back just where you brought it from." So we turned around and pulled it back there, and never used it until after 1944, when he passed away in October. And then we hitched old Jack and Paul on the on the wood splitter and pulled it over to the wood pile and started splitting wood. And my sisters told me that Mother would go into her bedroom and shut the door, and she wouldn't want to talk to anybody. She was scared out of her life that we were going to kill ourselves with that thing. So I went in and had a heart-to-heart talk with her and told her that it was no more dangerous than the saw. And I said that I'd put a guard over the knife where the knife came down, I said, and that would, if a person did stumble, they'd have something to fall against instead of falling on the knife. So after I got that done, she'd come out and watch us, and after a day or two, she forgot all about us using it. And what a thrill to have a machine that you could split wood like that. And then I remember the fall of 42, when we had to cut the grain all one way because there was a storm came in, and we had a good crop that year, and wind and the rain just blew that crop flat as a pancake to the southeast, and we had to cut it all with the binder one way because you couldn't do it the other way because it would just slide over and wouldn't get underneath the grain. So I can remember it took us all fall to cut and stook that crop. And we finished cutting about the last day of October, about Halloween, and then on the 1st and the 2nd of November, the four of us boys thrashed while Dad went out to see if he could get another thrashing outfit to come in, because we knew that there would be no getting all that thrashed. We had about 600 acres of that year. And he came home one day and no luck to get anybody else to help, and went out the next day and the same thing. So the morning of the 3rd, we didn't have to worry about threshing anymore because we had 2 feet of snow overnight. And so anyway, during that winter, to get enough grain for the milk cows and the pigs, and we had to go out, and we had a thaw and the sheaves froze down, so we had to shovel out the stooks and cut the bundles off of the ground with the old shovels. And we generally go out, and about a half a day we'd come back with a half a load of bundles. And we had the threshing machine in front of the barn with the straw blower into the barn door, so that we blew up the straw for bedding into the barn, and thrashed our half a load of bundles. And one problem, it wouldn't grind because there was too much ice in it. So we just had to leave the burrs partly open just so it would go through without gumming up. So that's what the cows and the pigs had to eat. And then I can still remember the next spring when we had to do all that threshing. And there was a lot of snow that winter, so all the sloughs were full, and we took old Jack and Paul and put them on a stone boat and went into the sloughs and put the stooks onto the stone boat and took them out on the higher land and re-stooked them. And I can remember it took us a month to thrash those 600 acres. And the bundles were so long because when they picked that laying down grain up and it went through the binder, it would just kind of gradually get long bundles. They were about 6 feet long. I can still remember my younger brother Jupp and I, we pitched those 600 acres of bundles into that threshing machine that spring, and it took us the whole month of May to do it. And my older brother Nels, we fixed up a sweep with our Oliver 70 to push the bundles, to push the stooks into the threshing machine. And that was really hard because they were pushed in so tight. And we had lots of excitement when we come to be throwing those bundles into the threshing machine. We'd come across skunks and rabbits and mice by the thousands. And my older brother Hans, he did the grain hauling, and Dad would bring out our meals out to the field, and I can remember him bringing 3 meals out. We'd be out there about 5 o'clock in the morning to about dark threshing, and it was a great thrill to know that we had put it through. And then we had to get seeding because it was June, and and that was pretty late seeding. So we put in a small crop, and most of that froze because it got it in too late. So we got all our grain the one year and then missed out the next year. And I got to tell you about about our potato patch. We generally had about 2 acres of potatoes, and I still can remember Dad out there with the 2-bottom plow with 6 horses and with a harrow behind, and he'd be going up and down the 2 acres, and with three planters on each side, planting potatoes, and in about 2 or 3 hours we'd have the 2 acres put in. And it was always my job to lead the horse when Dad would do the potato cultivating and the potato hilling, and it was my youngest brother and I's job to keep the weeds out of those potatoes. And I can still remember Dad caught us running up and down the potatoes one day, and we wouldn't see the weeds as bad when we ran. But that didn't work. We were made to slow down and pick the weeds. But I can still remember once it was getting kind of boring, so when I went home at dinner time, after dinner, I brought out a few tin cans and some string, and there would always be one of the cats playing in around the potato hams wherever we were up in the potato patch. And so I got my brother to hold the cat one day, and I tied these tin cans to her tail, and we had a little excitement for a while. Then going back to where we'd put the potatoes in the fall at harvest time, I can remember Dad and my older brother with a slip, and that's a little kind of a little earth mover, and they dug about a 30 by 40 foot root cellar, and we had to line all that with poplar rails and tamarack posts for the main beams, and then we'd put all these poplar rails and then some tar paper, and then for over the top, and then we pulled over dirt over the top of that, and that's where we stored all our potatoes, and Mother and the older girls would store all abundance of about every vegetable you could think of from a good garden. And I can still remember when we'd pick potatoes, sometimes we had 2 wagon box fulls to put down in the root cellar. And then another thought would be, I can still remember there was Dad had 2 barns. One was the main barn with half of it, south half had horses in it, tied up into stalls, and the north half had cows in it. And I can still remember the girls would go out and milk these cows night and morning. And but Jup and I, we had to curry these shorthorn bulls, getting them ready for show in the spring. Every morning before school, we had to get out there and curry and brush these white and roan shorthorn bulls. And and Hans and Nels would look after the horses, and the girls would do the milking, and then we'd slip in and have our breakfast and wash up and get off to school. And I can still remember I was chosen along with my second oldest brother, Nels, to go to the Edmonton show to show these bulls, and generally Dad showed horses, Belgian horses too. And I can still remember we slept in the barns where the cattle and horses were. We had one stall to sleep in, and we had to keep these animals all nice and clean. And I still can remember there was the Royal American shows set up there. All their show buildings and towers and everything out in front of these barns. And I still can remember to this day, for the whole week we were there, every day they'd be advertising this great big woman. She was only 3 yards around the waistline and 36 inches round each arm, and I can still remember that hollering through our open door of the barn. And then to think along another line, school days. And I had 2 troublesome brothers. They had their good parts too, but they were really troublesome to me because my second oldest brother, Nels, he was about approximately 3 years older than I was. And my youngest brother, Jeppa, was a little less than 2 years younger than I was. And at the drop of a hat, they'd be scrapping and wrestling. And I was afraid Nels would get so mean when he was fighting with my younger brother that I really thought he was going to kill him. So every time they'd get fighting, and I'd let them fight for a while, and then I'd intervene and fight with my older brother. And I had quite a time because he was 3 years older than I was. But I stopped the fight, and I finally got to the place where he could put me down, but I finally came to the place where I could put him down too. And anyway, we got through with with my younger brother still living. I didn't blame Nell sometimes because my younger brother was such a tease. And it didn't matter whether it was home behind the straw pile or on the way to school, there would be scraps. And I'd intervene whenever I thought it went far enough. And we had to walk through a quarter section of bush on the way to school. And we walked most of the time, but either Mom or Dad would give us a ride if it was stormy weather. And during the time that I would intervene and put a stop to the fights, I just hated fighting, and I just thought that just wasn't the right thing to do. That was even before I knew there was a God. So anyway, I can remember our old house. It was a 2-story house, and the 4 older girls, and my 2 older boys would sleep upstairs, and my brother Jumpa and I would sleep in a pull-out couch in the front room, and all the little ones would be in a bed in Mother and Dad's bedroom. But I can still remember one night Dad and Mom was arguing, and I don't know what the argument was about, but I can still remember Mother saying, "There's only one that's perfect, and that's God." And I thought, man, that's what I was just thinking. Then I found out there was a God. And shortly after that, I put on my Sunday best, and my younger brother Jeppa followed me, and we walked 3 miles to the United Church. I just had to find out more about God. And that was the church we chose, because there was a Catholic church only about 1.5 miles away, but I knew that wasn't the church to go to by the knowledge I had been listening to the older folks. So my brother and I, we went to the United Church. I think it was a couple of summers before Dad would let my brother Nels drive the car and take the whole family over. But he wouldn't go over there because it was only students that were preaching at the United Church there in the summertime. And he probably figured he knew more than those students did. But anyway, that went on until the fall of 44, when Dad was under tremendous pain, something wrong with his prostate. So they took him into the hospital in Edmonton, and the doctors were preparing him to have an operation in the morning, but on his way to the bathroom, they said he had a heart attack and dropped, and he was gone. So that was a big change in our family, because Dad was what you could call a dictator. He did all the commanding and all the business, and so I just felt like the children of Israel coming out of Egypt. They had a lot to learn, and we had a lot to learn coming from a situation like that. And then from there on, with Jep and I were farming the home farm and the girls' quarter. And I can remember we had one of the students from the United Church come and drive the tractor for us when we were swathing or binding. And I got this United Church student to, I said I was interested in getting to know more about God, so I wanted to know about if he would get me some literature from Bible schools. So that he did, and he got literature from 3 Bible schools, one in Edmonton and one in Saskatchewan and one at Three Hills. And I chose the one at Three Hills, and I went down that fall to the first year and took Bible school. And I completed three terms there. It was about 4 years. It took me about 3 terms because it took me 4 years to get through the first three years, because I'd stay home and help harvest and get there late. And so I could only take certain subjects each year, but I completed 3 years it was about 4 years that I took to do that. And then in the summer of 1950, I went down with the Fuller Foundation to minister to the children of reservations in North Dakota and South Dakota. And so I got an old car, and we went down to Williston, North Dakota, and we had a week's training there before the group of about 30 went different directions, teaching Daily Vacation Bible School. So the leader had a trailer for us, so we pulled a trailer from different reservations, and a fellow by the name of Gail Moore was with me, and we went from reservation to reservation that summer, teaching Daily Vacation Bible School. And I knew my eyesight was starting to fail. I just thought, well, I just wouldn't be able to be a minister, of which I was dreaming of. So I just thought maybe I'd just have to go back and farm, which that's the only thing I really knew, because that's the only training I had. And so I went back and farmed with my youngest brother and mother. We'd all had certain things, machinery and land. We farmed together for a couple of years there. And then I can still remember when the girls went off to Lake Nakaman. My younger sisters went off to Lake Nakaman for camp that one summer. That was the summer of '48, and when the weekend came, my oldest brother Hans and my younger brother Jeppa and I decided to go for the weekend up to camp to listen to some of the special speakers. So that's what we did, and we went up on the Friday night, and we were intending just to take you into that service and then go home. But while we were having the one service in this great big tent, we had a terrible storm. It just pelted down. It just rained something terrific. And when we tried to go home after the storm, there was just no way. We got about a half a mile and balled up with the gumbo in the fenders of our truck. So we decided we just had to stay. So we went back, and all the cabins were full. So they said all we got left is the hayloft in the barn. So that's where we spent the night. So the next day was Saturday, and we had breakfast, and then we went down. All the buildings were up on the highland, and there was this great big hill that you went down, and there was a real meadow down at the lower area where the campers were all camped, and that's where we had a ball game. And and then when we were going up the hill to go to dinner, my sister Mildred said, "Ola, would you like to meet one of our girlfriends?" And she introduced me to Loretta. So, and I said, "Sure, I'd like to meet her." So I shook hands, and inwardly I said, "Wow!" And one problem, we had gratis while we were at camp. That was to help pay our tuition. And one problem, she was on the dishwashing crew and I was on the potato peeling crew. So I got doing some thinking, so I had a friend, Don Kennett, there at camp, and I goes to him and I asked him if he would trade jobs. And he wanted to know why I wanted to trade jobs. And I said, you're my friend. I said, would you do it? And he said, sure, I'll do it. So I got on the dishwashing crew, of which where I wanted to be, and then we got talking and got to know each other a little bit, and that was the start of our romance. And in 52 we were married, and we heard that there was going to be, the nuns were going to do the teaching in the River Kabar school, and we didn't want to have anything to do with our children going to the Catholic school. So we started looking for another farm. And I had a sister by the name of Lavina, and she had been corresponding with pen pal in the Sedgwick area for years with a girl of her same name, Ola Danielson. And so we got in touch with them, and we went down and we found ourselves a farm down in the Sedgwick area, just 3 miles north and 1 west of Sedgwick. And we moved down there in the spring of 55, and farmed there for 20 years. And our daughter Judy was 2 when we moved to Sedgwick, and that's where she spent her school days. And in the fall of 1955, we lost our second baby girl with a virus that passed from Loretta into the baby system as a result of Loretta having pneumonia. And so we lost her at 10 days, being that the doctors just couldn't find out what was the matter until it was too late. And then we farmed there till 74. And I can remember Judy being in 4-H, and we took in Harvey Abbott, was my nephew, and he was having trouble at home, so he wanted to come over and help Uncle Ola and Aunt Loretta. That year I broke my leg, and he wanted to come over and help, so we arranged that, and he came over and helped, and stayed with us about 1.5 years, which we were pretty pleased. He turned out to be a wonderful Christian farmer now. And in 74, we decided to sell at Sedgwick and move up to Barrhead, because Loretta's folks both had some real serious health problems. So we sold a Sedgwick farm and gradually moved up during the summer and fall of 74. And that was the year Brian and Judy got married. And we finally got moved up to Barrhead, and lived, farmed up there for 19 years, and then we got doing some deep thinking because it was so hard to get down to Carstairs where our family was in the winter when Loretta was having so much trouble driving with so many lights on the highway, and we finally decided to move down here so that we could take part with our family and see the children grow up and be at their graduations and their weddings, and that was pretty well part of the story anyway. The most drastic changes, I would say, as far as agriculture, and that's what we were in, would be in the way farming was done. It was done with the binder and the stooking and the threshing, all so much labor involved. And then when the combines came, and the swathers and combines, and you could just zip through and swath it and go along with a combine and pick it up and separate the grain, save the grain, and drop the straw. It made it so much simpler and so much easier. I would say that's agriculture-wise, I'd say that was the biggest change I saw. There's been some drastic changes within families too, when we think of our parents and our grandparents coming over and from some, I can remember my grandparents on my mother's side coming from a brick house with brass stair railings, and my grandpa was a gardener, and they had a pretty good living over there and pretty nice conveniences, and then to come to an old shack that leaked, and a new land where they had to do everything, it seemed, the hard way, and then to think of how easy it is now with waterworks and transportation. Oh my, with the buggies and the Democrats and the wagons and the team of horses. And I can remember my wife's dad, when they moved out to the homestead, they came out with a team of oxen. They took a week to go from Edmonton to Lundford. And then to think of now with the modern cars, we can go that far for coffee. And there's been some tremendous changes. Then to think of the medical services for people. Now they got transit clinics moving from place to place, and they've got medical airplanes taking sick people from place to place, and there's been some tremendous changes in my lifetime. And all I can say is I'm so happy that I found the Lord, and I can have peace and contentment because of what He's done in my life. His amazing grace reached out, and I took Him as my Savior, that He died on the Calvary's cross to pay the debt for our sins, and now we can have peace and contentment because of what He did for us. And I find it so encouraging to be able to be here in the Cary Manor so that I can be a sort of a witness, and there's so many that are downhearted, and it's just nice to be able to have a word of encouragement for those that need encouragement. And I'm thankful too that I could be a part of the Gideons, to be able to have the Word of God to give out, because that's the only thing that God's Word is the only thing that in this old world that's going to make people worthwhile, is to live for Him and to help others. And I'm just so thankful for being able to get to know Him, and now to be able to serve Him in a small way. Well, we haven't traveled very much, other than where we went to farm. First of all at River Kabar, and then to Sedgwick, and then to Barhead, and then now down here at Carstairs. And we did, during the time of raising Charlaine's, we had the opportunity of traveling to Winnipeg one year, and we bought a herd sire down at Estevan, Saskatchewan. We went down there one Christmas holiday. We did, on our way back, we did go into the States from Estevan. We went into the States, and then west, came back into Saskatchewan and back this way. And I've had the opportunity of being down in Montana, North and South Dakota at the time in 1950, when I went down to teach Stilification Bible School to the Indians. And in 1964, we went to a wedding at Spokane, to a couple that we had helping. We had him helping us on the farm in the year of 1963, and we went down to their wedding in '64. And my message would be to take the Lord Jesus as your Savior and trust Him for everything. And His amazing grace goes a long way if we'll trust Him, and be always out to be able to give a word of encouragement to those that need encouragement. That's what I consider the most important thing that the Lord allowed me to have a part in a family. No, I just thank God for Loretta, my wife, and she's been such a great, tremendous helpmeet because of my eye problem, and then with our daughter, and she and her husband Brian, I think they both chose well, and we're blessed. They blessed us with 5 grandchildren, and now with great-grandchildren, and I just think that's just more than I can. I'm just so thankful to God for a family as Loretta and I have, and we just don't know how to express it, that we've been blessed in that way.